Welcome back to Evolving Waves, where we ride the tides of adversity to reach the shores of success. Today, we are thrilled and honored to have Aaron Silverman with us, a man whose life was forever changed by the loss of his son, Ari. It is a very, very heavy and difficult subject, so just want to give you all that disclaimer before we get too much into this. It's going to be a heavy episode that does tend to somewhat be the theme of Evolving Waves, as we do tend to see some pretty amazing stories of resilience as people come out on the other end and make something positive of their experiences. But anyway, Aaron's journey of grief, healing, and purpose led him to create the Ari Foss Foundation, which is an organization dedicated to providing vital financial support and resources to families experiencing stillbirth and neonatal loss. So join us today as Aaron shares his powerful story, the impact of grief and therapy, and how his personal loss has inspired him to make a meaningful difference in the lives of others. There's a conversation about overcoming tragedy and finding purpose, and the profound ways that we can support each other throughout life's darkest hours. Before we get into that, though, a quick word from our sponsor.
Before we get into his story, we want to quickly shout out our sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Stingray Branding, a national lead generation-focused marketing agency that helps businesses generate an ROI from their marketing efforts, including web design, social media, Google search, email, automations, and more. Learn more about them at stingraybranding.com.
With that said, Aaron, we're so thrilled to have you with us today. Thank you so much for being willing to take the time and share your story with us.
Thank you to you. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and share what we do.
Of course, and I guess the best place to start is at the start. So tell me the story of Ari. What happened? What kind of scars have come with it, and what do you want people to know about the story?
So Ari was my wife and I's first son. Back in 2014, I remember the morning that she woke me up hyperventilating, telling me that she was pregnant, and so that was our first kid. So it was like, at the moment, it was like, oh man, I gotta grow up. Life is about to change. We're responsible for another human. And fast forward 9 months, we went into the hospital for a normal delivery, and things went sideways, and he was stillborn, and we left without him. And so it was a pretty difficult time there.
Yeah, I mean, difficult doesn't even probably come close to it. You have 9 months of thinking that you're going to be welcoming this child into the world, and you're preparing. I'm sure there are books to read, there's literature, there's, I guess at the time maybe Google wasn't what it is now, but there's certainly some other resources where you could learn how to be a better parent and prepare for what's going to happen, and it doesn't happen. So can you, for a moment, just talk about the reaction that you had when you realized you were going to be going home with him?
So leading into the pregnancy, like being the male, I'm just kind of along for the ride. I go to the the OBGYN visits, because I'm like, the baby grows in the wife.
Right.
And so I'm just,
so we're told in biology class.
Yeah. So it's just, I didn't, I was kind of along for the ride. I didn't really feel that connection to him so much. I mean, I knew what was coming, but obviously my wife had a much stronger connection. Feeling the kicks, felt like a little alien in there. So it always made me feel like, the movies where it's like the alien just pops out of the belly. It's kind of weird. And my background's biology, so I should know this, but still kind of weird. But then when we were in the hospital and things went sideways, and like I can't get into too much of it, but like the moment I saw him, he never took a breath. Even though it was full term, he never took a breath, so he's considered stillbirth. I had never felt like such an instant connection to something where it was, I would have given up my life just for him to have a chance, and not even guaranteed that he survived, just to have a chance. I was just like that instant, like, oh my God, there is something significantly more than me that I care about. Which for my wife, she had 9 months of that. But for me, it was instantaneous of like, oh my God, like I would just give up everything right now for him, just to have a chance. And so,
what do you think it was that created that instinct in you?
Seeing him. I think it was just seeing him lie there, and also him being vulnerable. I mean, I assume it would have happened if he had been born healthy, but like him just being vulnerable, not being able to survive and breathe, like that was, I mean, almost broke me, and in some ways did. So.
Yeah, it's something that's unimaginably difficult. Obviously, that even that sentence doesn't do it justice. You have the expectations of having a son, and it doesn't happen. So I know that the grief process that must have kicked in. There are the 5 stages of it. It's shock and denial, typically at the start of it. How do you go from those 2 stages, or did you skip one of them? And then how did you go from there to the acceptance phase? What helped you get from the shock and denial at first? Or did you experience those and then go till the end where you accept it and you move on and make something positive of it?
Leaving the hospital without him. So I really can't say that me personally went through stages of shock, denial, acceptance, because we left the hospital without him. Like, so there was no, like, so it's kind of...
You accepted it immediately.
Yeah, because we left without him. And so, I mean, that was, heart-wrenching is an understatement. And so, and it took a long time to find, like, the new normal, because life changed. Like, nothing was ever going to be the same again. And so, I mean, it took years to get to the point where life was more of a roller coaster. So I guess it's just better to equate, like, I was always up and down for the longest time, because if I had a good moment, I felt guilty that I was having a good moment, that I should still be grieving because my son had passed. I mean, I'm talking like 2-3 years down the road. Even it was before my daughter was born, but because we now have 2 healthy children at home, a daughter and a son. But while my wife was pregnant with our daughter, my emotions would be pretty much depressed all the time. But then if I was happy, I would then become more depressed, because I was also felt guilty that I was happy at that moment. And then when we were pregnant with Haley, our daughter, someone recommended to me, he's like, do you want to be going through this roller coaster of emotions all the time? And I was like, is this what you want for your daughter to come into? And I was like, no. I mean, like, I'm very thankful that person was blunt, and honest with their feedback to me. So I went and started therapy. Many years of therapy. Well, not many, like 2 or 3 years. I don't remember the exact amount, but she was wonderful. Learned many things, but the most important one I learned from was both and. That I could be both happy and sad at the same time. And so I like to equate it to, are you a Marvel fan? Like, yeah. DC, you know who the Hulk is? And then one of the later movies, he was just the Hulk, and he's green, but he was normal. Like normal demeanor. He wasn't angry. And he asked, like, well, how can you do both? And he's like, well, the trick is I'm now always angry. So I can now be, my normal self and be the Hulk. And so that's kind of what I equate it to now, is like, there's always... now always have an underlying sadness, but I can also be happy at the same time and enjoy it. And I remember the very first time I was happy without feeling guilt. Don't remember the year. That's the challenge. It was either 2020 or 2021. The reason why is because it was COVID, and I was creating, building things for an outdoor Halloween thing for our kids. And I like working with my hands. I like building things. And I remember thinking, like, I'm truly happy, at peace while building this. And I thought, why am I not feeling guilty or sad at the same time? And it was just like, this is really cool. Like, it was the first time since July 30th, 2014 that I had been, like, truly happy. And I had 2 other kids born since then. But it was always that struggle, but that was the first time where it was like, wow, this is really nice. And so we'll say 2020, because that was Halloween was the first one. So at least 6 years to get to a sense of normalcy.
Yeah, It's not something that you get over overnight. I don't even, I can't even put myself in that position. I can't put myself in those shoes, and I even know that. So that's, as you said, a roller coaster event. So how would you say that therapy helped you get over, or not get over, but get through this devastation? What was it that they taught you? What trick did they pass on to you?
It was the both and thing. That's really what did it for me. There's a lot of other things that we talked about in there as well. Some of them I don't want to get into. And so, but the both and was, that both and saved my life. So it would not, I don't want to say saved my life. I wasn't suicidal by any stretch of the imagination. But like my quality of life, I could, still stay married and be happy and have kids and have good relationships with them. And so like, that's what I mean, like by saving lives.
So as you definitely fit the bill of this podcast, what we're looking for, people who overcome some sort of adversity, in your case a pretty drastic and just devastating one. You overcome it to make something good happen out of it. Ari Foss Foundation. Tell me about that, how you decided to go about starting that, and exactly what it is that you guys do.
So within South Carolina, legally Ari never existed because he never took a breath. And so you have to take a breath in order to get like a traditional death certificate, to be an actual legally person because of, by law. So essentially, like insurance, that was a weird thing because things were billed to Ari from the hospital, but he never existed. So the insurance company didn't know how to bill it. So it was very weird. And so I felt kind of like he was real. He was here. I was a dad for 9 months. Even though he wasn't born, I was still a dad. And I was like, I want his life to mean something. And so, and we thought about like, how can we do something here? And so looking back, when my wife left the hospital, she got a folder, like, just like a standard folder. On the left side was information about her health, like her physical health, things she had to do. On the right side of the folder were mental health resources, religious resources. Nowhere during that process did they give the hospital provide anything for helping plan a funeral or along those lines. When we planned the funeral, fortunately my background's science, so I just went online and started researching how you plan a funeral and started making phone calls. So I went from going back to the grieving thing, I kind of had to put grieving on pause to be able to plan the funeral. And so with the Ari Foss Foundation, our goal is to be in that folder with information on how to plan a funeral and how you can get help with that process. And so that's where it was born from. That idea was exactly what my wife and I went through in that 48 hours after we lost Ari.
So I've definitely got some follow-ups to that, but first, where does the name Foss come from? Because your last name is Silverman, so why is it the Ari Foss Foundation?
Cast path. So that's one of the poems that kind of shaped my life, and so he's named after. Middle name came from the author of the Cast Path.
Gotcha. Okay, so yes, there's definitely an eternal life that's living on through your foundation with Ari. Even though, as you said, he never took a breath, his legacy, his life will mean something because of what it is that you're doing. So you start making phone calls, you want to do something great, that's awesome. There's a big difference between people who want to do something because they have an idea or passion even behind it and making it happen. So what were some of the logistical hurdles that you had to face and then overcome to be able to make the Ari Foss Foundation more than just a thought in your head?
So the Ari Foss Foundation is structured to be at the point of when things happen. And so that means we had to work with hospitals to have our information given to the families at that time. And so we started having the thoughts of the Ari Foss Foundation, initial thoughts while Laura was pregnant with Haley, our daughter. And so Haley and our other son were born at MUSC. And we had the same, in going through that process, talking with the doctor, I was like, hey, does MUSC have anything around what we want to do? And he's like, at this time, no, we don't. I was like, hey, when we get this up, and this is 2015, and I was like, is this something we can look at potentially working with MUSC? And he said, we'll see, when it's ready, let me know, and I'll run it by the people here and see what we can do. I run the Ari Foss Foundation as a volunteer because Ari's my son. I have a full-time job, a company that I run. And so, having a kid, growing that company, then having another kid, things kind of got delayed. Because initially what we wanted to do was build education, but building out an education platform takes time. Sure. So around early 2023, so now we're fast forwarding a few years, Ari Foss Foundation was officially created in 2015. And I was told it was going to be very expensive to create a 501c3. You got to get lawyers involved, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be a lot of money. So I started a GoFundMe with some family and friends to get this off the ground back in 2015. We got some money, not nearly what I was told we would need. So again, my background's science, so I did what you do. I started researching it. I found this IRS document where if you answered no to these 50 questions, it's just a filing fee of a few $100 and you're a 501c3. Essentially, we were too small for them to care about. And so we paid the filing fee. And that's how we became an official 501c3 in 2015. Relatively easy. We did that, got the EIN with the federal government, opened a bank account, and that money from the GoFundMe was just sitting there. And in 2023, I didn't have time to create this education program because we didn't want to recreate the wheel, but we wanted to, get that information to families and kind of be a hub where they can come to and then go out and get what they need. But again, it just took time. Now I have 2 kids, a company that's doing okay. And I was like, let's just start paying for funerals because we wanted to grow into paying for funerals. It was going to be, we're going to educate and then start paying. We were like, let's flip that now. Let's just start paying. I'm tired of having $5,000 sit in this account and not do anything with it. So I approached Dr. Goudier. I can say his name because he's on our board at MUSC. He went and talked to people at MUSC. By now, MUSC has a palliative care program, and they actually have someone who helps families do this. Now, Ari was not lost at MUSC. He did not. He was at a different hospital. But now MUSC has a bereavement coordinator. And so Dr. Goudier got us in touch with the palliative care program, and we had a meeting with the palliative care team, and they said, sure, let's see how this will work. We didn't have a brochure. The website was out of date. We did it on a piece of paper. They actually were in between bereavement coordinators, and then they hired the new one. And in 2003, we helped pay for 4 cremations / funerals, 2 of each. And then she's kind of grown from there, being at MUSC. And so that relationship with MUSC was pretty vital to what we do. Not pretty,
Very
was
vital.
very, yeah.
So yeah, definitely some natural and organic collaborations with MUSC. Also Roper St. Francis.
Yes, yep. We expanded to Roper St. Francis in last year, 2024. So
very nice. So we talked off air about this. I do think it's worth bringing on air for everyone else to hear. So, and this goes to show the true altruism and benevolence behind what you're doing here. You're Jewish, as am I. Jews don't really believe in cremation, yet you help with that. And it would be one thing. It would be, I guess, special enough in its own way if you helped fellow Jews, or not even just Jews, just people who wanted to provide burials. You also provide a service that's not in the scope of belief. It's not what you did. It's not what you personally believe in, but it's something that is helping other people do, I guess, what you did in terms of going forward from a terrible situation in their own way, even if it's not one that you agreed with. Why was that so important to you?
So when we lost Ari, someone did a meal train for us, like where people come to your house and they bring food and have dinner. I was very much against it. I wanted to crawl into our hole and not see anyone. In retrospect, never do that. If you're going through a grieving process, seeing people is really good. Force yourself to go out to dinner. So one of the people that came over, so my wife was a teacher at that time. She's a teacher assistant now, but she was a teacher at that time. One of her teacher friends' parents, she had a stillbirth back in the 90s, and I don't want to get into too much of it, but at that time they weren't able to cremate their child or bury their child. They just weren't able to. So the hospital took care of it, and she regretted at that time, still does, not being able to have somewhere to grieve for her child. So our goal is to enable families to grieve for their child in the way they best see fit, and that's why cremation, funeral. We can't give people everything they want. So we help with up to $500 for a cremation, and we'll help up to $1,200 for a funeral. If someone wants more than that, they would have to pay for themselves or have other resources. So our goal is to help the people that financially can't do it themselves. I mean, that's not the only criteria, but that's our goal, is so that way everyone can grieve for their child in the manner in which they see.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, and it's definitely, again, there's definitely the level of, I went through this, so I want anyone else who went through this terrible thing to be able to go through it as I did, which is in itself definitely a sign of a mensch in our culture. We say it's a real benevolent, altruistic human being. For you to do it for others in ways that they see fit is something special, especially when it's something that doesn't align with your beliefs or our beliefs, your family's beliefs. So definitely something that's worth noting there. Can you explain how the cremation and funeral financial assistance program works and why the direct payments are so important to vendors?
So we only work with MUSC and Roper St. Francis now, and so we have a brochure. Here, I'll show it to you. We have this brochure that is actually given to the family. So going back to that folder that we talked about, this brochure goes into that folder. So that way it's given to the families as they start thinking about what they have to do. And right now, the only thing we do is financially pay for things. Like you said, we are working on an education program now, where we can help walk them through the logistics of planning. Right now, it's just the check. We pay the vendors directly. That's multiple reasons for paying the vendors directly is the main one is just take one burden off the family. So we're not giving the money to them and then they have to turn around and go pay the vendor. It's just an extra step. And so we pay the vendors directly, so that way it helps ease the process for the families. And also, too, it guarantees to the vendor that they're getting paid. So
it makes sense. Yeah, obviously there needs to be some exchange of payment for service. So the foundation also offers education and support. There's the financial aspect, which is huge. The way of taking care of these families mentally is also something that's been very important for y'all. So can you talk a little bit more about the kinds of resources that have been available to these people who are going through this?
So we are on the very beginning stages of the education program. We actually just got a grant for that last month, and we're building it out. So I mentioned earlier, the goal was never to recreate the wheel. So the first part will be, and we'll have another brochure that looks like this, but so that way families get two brochures. It'll be like, here's some things to think about as you plan the funeral. Here are your steps on the funeral. So that'll be the very basic version of the education. And then as far as support, we want to be able to link to local nonprofits where they can go and get some of those resources. Some nonprofits will meet in person. There's some online, like Facebook groups that people can go. It's not a nonprofit, it's just a group that meets and talks. And then there's also some national resources that will build out into that. There's books that I read. My wife read some books, that helped us, and so make book recommendations and that kind of stuff as well.
So one term I would definitely use to describe what you do is unique, I think, in several different ways. We talked about, obviously, the crux of what it is that you do. We talked about the different ways that you provide support and access to people. What else would you say that we have not already talked about helps make the Ari Foss Foundation unique? What is something specifically that people may not know off the bat that makes what you do unique?
So so on the financial assistance piece, there's two things. The first is we're not asking families to look at other resources to see if they can pay. When I started my wife and I started the Ari Foss Foundation, I researched other organizations out there. The main one we found had an application that was like multiple pages long and asked, like, have you tried a GoFundMe? Have you tried government resources? Have you tried asking family and friends? I went through the grieving process. I didn't want to ask for help. I wanted to crawl into that dark hole and never come out. My mom, she went and created a GoFundMe on her own to help us with the funeral expenses, and some of that also went to start the Ari Foss Foundation as well. And so I don't want to put that extra step on families. So our goal is to quickly provide financial assistance. So that's one we're not asking them to go find other sources of funding. Or when I say funding, assistance. We want to help right off the bat, simple as can be. Which, quick side note, kind of limits our growth is a bad term, I guess expansion. That's why we're only in 2 hospitals right now, because we want to make sure that we have enough funds available to support the needs of those 2 hospitals' families. The second thing that makes us unique is we're in the hospital at the point the families need us. There's no going online to find us. Like I said, there's a few organizations that do make payments, but you have to go find them. And then you have to go through their steps and that kind of stuff, whereas we are at the point that it happens. So.
Gotcha. Okay. So hospital-based support is something that I think if you were to ask 100 people, 1,000 people, they would say, yeah, that's great, but I don't know how, what do you mean hospital-based support? It sounds great, but how does it work in actuality? You, again, just to reiterate, took this grief from this terrible incident that happened, this devastating event, and you used that to fuel you through any and all of these hoops that may have been thrown your way, all these obstacles that got tossed in your way, fueled you through that to make this happen. Hospital-based support, okay, cool. What? Oh, wait, it's real. It's the Ari Foss Foundation. What do you say to those who may be going through their own grief right now and they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel? They're just stuck in that, I want to crawl into that hole type of mentality. I don't want to see people, yeah, you say it's great, but you're not me. You don't know what it's like to be me, etc. They just have all these reasons and defense mechanisms for not being able to do something, which are legitimate because grief is a terrible thing that can shock you. But what do you say to these people who just don't know where to start moving forward?
Go for a walk outside. Just go outside and go for a walk. It's hard. I mean, it's just time. I mean, it's the old saying, time heals all wounds. It doesn't. It just makes them sometimes feel more distant. The first time I left the hospital was to get Laura, I don't know if I said her name, Laura, my wife, food. And I remember thinking, my world has stopped. It's shattered in pieces, and look at all these people go about their day. Nothing happened, because nothing did happen to them. It happened to us. And that's why I wanted to crawl in dark holes, because my world ended, and it just, and we went, it's hard to come out of the dark hole once you're there. My wife and I kind of made our own little cocoon with very close friends and family, and it was very hard to come out of that and go do things again. And so there is no one size fits all. And if you're having trouble, I mean, I would just say go outside for a walk. Just
the rays of sunshine can have some kind of magical effect, right?
Yeah.
They do. There's some science behind that. I'm not going to pretend. You're the science guy, but I'm not going to pretend to know how that works. But there is something to that where the rays of sun hit you and they do have some kind of positive effect on your mental health. Is it really that simple? And obviously that's not going to fix everything, but in terms of getting you started, it's really that simple. Just go for a walk.
You got to take one step, and so every journey starts with one step. So, I mean, that would be my recommendation for a starting point. Call someone and just talk, text. People like texting nowadays. I still prefer calling. But like text a friend and just say, hey, it's been a while. Just wanted to say hi. I mean, it's just little things. It's hard. And therapy is wonderful. If nothing else works, reach out to a therapist. My wife and I were very lucky in that the first therapist each one of us talked to was the right one. Yeah. And so if like your first therapist doesn't work out, go to another one. Try a different one. And so I'm a huge advocate of therapy. But that's not a quick fix. That's not going to be a day or a week or a month. It is a process.
Interesting that we're talking about therapy now, because one of our very soon to be guests on the Evolving Waves, one of our near future guests, named Jonathan Bonsek. You're going to be hearing more about what he does in a couple weeks, in a couple months from now. We actually have 4 episodes out of that because there's so much there. But he is one of those people that says it's not what you want to hear, it's what you need to hear. But when you're in the state of grief, when you're grieving through something, it's kind of hard to know that, isn't it? Because you want some validation that what you're going through is terrible. You want to hear something comforting, but there's nothing that's going to undo the terrible thing that's happened. So with that in mind, what makes someone the right therapist for you? How do you know if you have the right therapist?
So for me, it was, she would push back on some of the things I would say. It wasn't just like, oh, boo-hoo, that happened to you. Let me, pat you on the back here. It was true empathy of like, oh my God, what you went through is horrible. But then some things I would, the way I was processing things, she would push back and be like, well, you're not processing that in the correct manner. You need to try something else. And so it was more of a conversation like this, where there was good dialogue going back. At times she would just let me ramble for a while. And so we just had a really good relationship of, I don't know. And also it was only one. I mean, who knows? Maybe it was horrible. I don't know.
True.
But for me, it was great.
It worked for you.
100% yes. 100% yes. And so, but it was a good conversation. Like I felt comfortable speaking with her about things. And so.
And again, it goes back to what Jonathan said. It's not what you want to hear, it's what you need to hear.
Right.
And she was telling you some things that you needed to hear. And it wasn't just, oh, come here for a hug, we'll make you feel better. Yeah. It's, no, this is not correct. This needs to be changed.
Yeah.
To a grieving man who just lost his son.
Yeah. And she also did it in the proper manner.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It wasn't just as
bedside
abrupt
manner.
Yeah, it wasn't just as abrupt as you're wrong.
Right.
Change. It was like,
There's
how about if we reframe that and start looking at that? So like, there was definitely, really good thing, so.
Gotcha. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about your property management company, your full-time job. How would you say your personal experience with the Ari Foss Foundation and just the loss of Ari in general, how has it influenced your day-to-day life running your property management company, especially with working with people that you generally like?
Yeah, so I've been, before I lost Ari, it was, I'm in business. I'm in business for whoever wants to do business with me. Like, you have a property, we manage it. That was it. After losing Ari, I started looking at a lot of things. And then through some professional development on that side, I learned that, like, I'm not in business to do business with everybody. I'm in it for my silo that I have that I'm good at. That's what I do. And I can say no to prospective clients. And so I actually sold half my company in 2016 just because that half wasn't working well for me. And so I got rid of the half, and then the half I kept, it was just a much better life with that work life. It wasn't impacting me in life. And so I've really been very intentional on trying to work with clients that I have a good relationship with. For example, once I hired a client. Oh, I'm sorry, client hired us. Things went to go well. As soon as we went to go start advertising and taking pictures, he just like kept talking about how the tenant is this enemy. And he wants them surveillanced and watched. And I was like, whoa, the tenant is, kind of our partner in this. They're the ones that pay your rent. They pay by that we can pay our bills. Like we have good relationships with tenants. And he was just like, no, I don't know if he was in the Army. I don't remember, but it's very much like a brr. And I was like, you know what? We're not a good fit. And so I terminated the management agreement that day and moved on. Because it would have just been constant conflict of how we want tenants to enjoy the home they live in. We actually call them residents. It's not just a tenant; they're a resident; it's their home. And so that's just one example. I'm very intentionally trying to cultivate clients and vendors that we work with that are pleasant to work with. And so I've been very intentional. Like there's some vendors that have been abrasive, not to me, but to tenants. And I'm like, nope, we're not working with you. Moving on. And so it's just I'm trying to cultivate a life that is just enjoyable and not putting up with the headaches. And that's what I learned through. Because pre-Ari, I was like, oh, we got to do business with everyone. But after losing them, I've kind of realized what's important. And it's not doing business just for business sake.
Someone said to me, and I think this is a famous quote, but someone recently said to me, you are the sum of who you surround yourself with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You are the sum of the people that you choose to do business with. I guess if you worked with people who were nightmares, it could, in theory, rub off on you, and you could be more upset at home. It could upset you when you're talking to the clients you do like working with, and maybe because you're frustrated with one of them, you say something you probably shouldn't have. Who knows? You don't know because you don't have those interactions now. But by surrounding yourself only with the types of clients / residents that you do enjoy working with, you are significantly decreasing the odds of that.
Right.
That's pretty crazy it's a great thing that you learn that through the experience with Ari, but definitely good that you're able to take that and move forward with it. So what would you say has been one of the most meaningful moments or stories that have transpired through the work of the Ari Foss Foundation?
So I don't communicate too much with the families we help. It's usually 99% of it's via email. But this one mother we helped received the email, and sometimes we get thank you emails, sometimes we don't. I expect nothing because families are going through grieving. The last thing they need to worry about is emailing us a thank you. Like I don't care. But she sent this email that said, paraphrasing, we were the difference between her taking her baby home and not taking her baby home. And so she was able to have a cremation, and so she took her baby's ashes home. And if it wasn't for us, that baby would have been disposed of as medical waste.
Medical waste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Medical waste for a human being.
Yeah. Well, because it was a fetus was stillborn.
Potential human being.
Yeah.
Even if you want to use that phraseology, you're not going to get into that debate, but certainly a proto person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Medical waste.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's
And again, just to clarify, that's for stillbirths.
Right.
Stillbirths that never took a breath. So,
nonetheless, it was in the womb for 9 months, and or 8.5 months, I guess.
Well, it depends. So, stillbirth is defined as any fetal loss from 21 weeks till full term.
Yeah.
And so, so I don't remember off the top of my head whether it was 22 weeks or 35 weeks. I don't know. So.
Gotcha. Okay. But nonetheless, it was developed enough that in other circumstances, at that point of development, could have survived outside the womb, should the circumstances of the DNA have been a little bit different.
That I don't know. I intentionally don't get into religious or legal aspects of what we.
Well,
do.
I'm not saying I'm not saying in a specific case. I'm saying
Yeah.
at 20 weeks or 22 weeks or whatever that number is, typically fetal viability, the fetus can in some circumstances survive.
Potentially, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So it's developed enough that
Potentially,
it's
yeah.
at that point, and it's at that point that they're being deemed medical waste. That's the part that's kind of
Yeah.
jarring my brain.
Yeah.
There's
definitely a disconnect between. Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah. So we're on the same page
Yeah.
on that. So on a more positive note, we'll end by talking about one of the ways you're remembering Ari Foss, the first annual memorial walk, and tell us what you hope to achieve with this event in terms of awareness and support.
So it's so on October 4th, we're having our first large fundraiser / I don't want to say tribute, but like memorial for the families that we've helped. So we're having a walk at Park Circle. Like I said, people can register and come walk. We're going to have a memorial making station. We're going to invite all of the families that we've helped to come at no cost registration for them, so they can make a memorial for their lost baby. But we're really leaning into the both and as well.
Right.
We can both remember the children that were lost, but also have a good time doing it. Like we're pretty close to securing a person to play some music during the event. We'll have some vendors there, like a face painting person. We're trying to get a bubble person there. We'll have some food trucks, and we'll have, like I said, you can walk and do walk around the circle. It's a 3-hour event, but you can walk one lap, you can walk no laps, kind of equate that to the grieving process. It's different for everybody. There is no like, here's how you grieve. And our walk's the same. You can come, you can just hang out, or you can come and do a walk around the loop, do 2 laps. If you were feeling real froggy, you can do 6 laps and do a 5K.
6 laps of the 5. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Lived here for a few years. Didn't even know the measurements of the perimeter or the circumference of that road. Yeah, so it's going to be made to be, I guess, a happy event, or as happy as it possibly can be. It's not going to be a somber thing. Okay. Yeah. It's going to be with a positive spin.
Yeah.
I guess the last question I have is how do you tell kids about this? I'm assuming it's because you mentioned face painting, and there's going to be kid-friendly opportunities there. So how do you broach this subject to kids?
So I don't know how you would broach it with a kid that you already have, like when you lose a child, because we didn't have, Ari was our first. But Haley and Benjamin, my son, they know who Ari is. They both know that they have an older brother that's just not with us anymore, because we celebrate, and very much in Jewish tradition.
Yeah.
We go to his gravesite every year in the anniversary of his death. But we call it his birthday. Yeah, the yard site. Yeah, but we call it his birthday. We go and celebrate. We call it Ari's Day. And so we go to the gravesite, and then we go to the aquarium every year, and then we go out for lunch. And so our kids know him, of him, and we talk about him. We have his picture up at our house. And so for us, it's just very open dialogue and talk with them about it. So how others broach it, I have no idea.
But that's you. It was you as both men as Aaron Silverman and pejorative you. Like, there are parents who are not Aaron who probably have different beliefs than you, who have their own way of telling their kids about it, and it's perfectly valid because that's what they believe in. I mean, we don't push our beliefs of the Yort site onto non-Jewish families, but it's what works for us. It's how we do things. So, I mean, that's that. I don't want to say beautiful, because it's a terrible thing to have to do, but it's a beautiful way to remember someone who is their older brother, will live on forever. And I know that we both believe that there's an afterlife, and one day they'll be reunited with him, but for the time being, that's how they get to honor him in this life. So yeah, I mean, as we kind of wrap up and put a bow on the story, what else is there that we haven't talked about that you want out there? Because we covered a lot, but what is something else that you think people should know about anything about the grief process, about the science of stillborns, about how you broach the subject, about starting a foundation, about overcoming grief, any message that you want to send to anyone else out there, the floor is yours to do so.
The our focus is what happens after the loss. So I don't, because there's a lot of great organizations that do stuff before. So that's not my purview. One of the challenges that we have is like, I'm very grateful of what we're doing, but I wish we didn't have to, because I wish all of these babies were, born healthy and went home with their parents. Kind of like to really shift focus to the outside support. If you have a friend or a family member that went through this, try to make some extra effort to reach out to them, because they probably crawled into that dark hole. Sorry, randomly will sometimes hit me. And they need help coming out. And so calling them, and if you're not sure if you should ask them questions or if they feel like talking, ask them. It's like, hey, do you want to talk about it? If they say yes, be that sounding board. If they say no, just say, okay, we're here. I'm here if you ever need anything. Don't pretend like they don't exist. Reach out to them, because their world is shattered. And also, don't be afraid. Sometimes people, I've heard, well, I don't want to ask because I don't want to bring it up. It's been 11 years. There's not a day that's gone by I haven't thought about them. So no one could ever make me think about them. Like it's always there. Like, I'll carry it forever. Not just because of the Ari Foss Foundation. Even without that, I'd carry his memory forever. I don't know. Someone was talking with someone that got back to me. I forget how it was. But she had a stillbirth like 40 years ago, and she still thought about that child. So don't be afraid to ask and worry you're going to upset that person, because that person's already upset. And so
the damage is done.
Right, yeah, and you're not going to upset them just by asking if they feel like talking about it. If they say no, respect that, don't push. Then you might upset them. Right. But so being on the outside looking in, try to help them, because it is a lot more common than I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure I know why, but like, especially on the females, a lot of females know someone that has had a stillbirth or a miscarriage or a neonatal loss, whereas on the male side, it's not something males talk about as much, but it's a lot more common than people think. And so, but yeah,
it's a terrible thing to have to do, but it's a great thing to do for those who are in that situation.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best way to synopsize it. As we talk about at the end of every show, I mean, these seem to get heavier and heavier with each one we do. But yeah, I mean, we've had someone get kidnapped in the Bahamas off a boat. They were told to drain their bank account. He thought he was a dead man. Today, he's a famous chef. Adversity, he overcomes it. We have Aaron today, who has one of the most sickeningly devastating things that can possibly happen, and here he is channeling that to do something good for those people. In many cases that you'll never even meet. Like you said, it's through email you communicate with them. You'll never know these people beyond just the correspondence through email. You're helping them. You don't know who they are. You're helping them. That's an amazing, amazing thing. And as horrid as the loss of Ari is, it is something that, at least to me, restores some faith in humanity, that you are doing something good for other people because of it.
Yeah. And that's what, Laura and I, that's one of the things we've talked about, is like, we're not changing the world, but we might help change their world.
Their world, yes.
And so that's our goal. And just if we can help them, maybe that, helps make the community a little bit better as well. So, because it's definitely not all me. My wife is there a lot. Right. I'm just more of the face of it, but she is there, hand in hand as well with it.
Yeah, well, it is an incredible thing you do, and like I said off air even before you started, the part, it's all incredible. All of it is. The part that got me was you're helping people with different beliefs in you, because typically when you see, at least to me, when I see someone who starts a foundation because of a personal cause, they're helping someone who is in their exact same situation try to go through their their healing process, or they get to the other side of whatever it is, the way that they did it. You don't. You have the cremation option and the funeral option. There are people who do things differently than you because they believe in different things. You're here to help them just the same.
Yep.
That's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
We're very happy to have had you on, Aaron. We very much appreciate you being willing to tell this story. I mean, I know it's something that I can see it in you, that it's definitely a pain that doesn't go away, but we appreciate you opening up and sharing it with us. Y'all can go to arifossfoundation.org. You can also email them email them at info@arifossfoundation.org to get in touch with them should you request their services. Aaron, thank you. This is definitely a tough conversation and a tough subject, but we're very glad that we had it.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it and kind of shed some light on some of the not so pleasant things people go through.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up today's episode, remember that in the face of adversity, there's always the opportunity for growth, resilience, and success. And if you don't believe me, just look at Aaron. Look at what he did with a terrible tragedy, and look at what he turned it into. It's something that will make sure that Ari's legacy will live on forever. Aaron, thank you so much.
Thank you, Neil.